So welcome to the webinar. There's no doubt about it, mentoring is more effective when mentors and mentorees are properly prepared for their roles. Yet, in a recent poll, 38% of mentoring program managers said they provided no training at all for participants. It's a mistake to assume that mentors know what to do. There are many different definitions of mentoring, various styles of mentoring, and diverse approaches. So at the very least, you need to brief your mentors about what's expected of them. Mentorees also need to be primed to get the most out of the mentoring relationship. It's helpful for them to clarify their goals, understand their responsibilities before meeting their mentor. Both mentors and mentorees may need to develop the specific skills that create and maintain effective mentoring. So, how can you educate, train, and develop people to make the most out of mentoring? That's what we're going to talk about today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Anne Rolfe. I have a background in adult learning and career development. 2 decades ago, I began to focus on mentoring as the key strategy for people who want to progress their careers. My website, mentoring-works.com, is a central point for resources that are used right around the world to develop and support mentoring. On the website, you'll find my blog where I've posted articles on this and other topics. And you can access that after the webinar. Now, I've been involved in many mentoring programs over the last 2 decades. Some of them have helped keep people safe in the workplace, such as business sites, and go home safely to their loved ones at night. Some have been for small business and increased profitability and sustainability of small businesses. Some have retained and developed young apprentices and kept them safe as they literally climbed those telegraph poles that you see there, and developed the managers and more senior people who were mentoring those youngsters as well. I've worked with graduates on their early career development and developing their leadership skills. One program helped to keep our skies safe by working with highly technical and highly trained people to ensure we have operational consistency around our big country of Australia. And some of the programs I'm most proud of have been for Aboriginal people here in Australia, aimed at equity for staff and improved client services. That's enough about me. Let's find out a bit about you. Our topic today is training, and I'm going to launch a poll now, and I'm going to ask you to identify, just choose one of the responses up on your screen now. Do you provide training and development for mentors, just mentors alone? Do you provide training for mentorees only? Do you provide it for mentors and mentorees? Do you go one better than that? Mentors, mentorees, and their managers? Or do you not provide training at all? Now, I will share the responses with you. This is the same poll that I quoted those figures from earlier, so it'll be interesting to see what the response is as we're going now. And I'm seeing those responses coming in. We've got about 68% of people have voted. You can, once you've voted, if you've got a question, comment, or observation, please type that in. You might want to expand on your response to this particular poll. Okay, I think we've got almost everyone. Just one more second. I don't see any more votes coming in, so I'm going to close that poll and share the responses with you. Let's take a look. Okay, so this is different from the last poll that I ran on this, which was a more broadly focused webinar, but this one's specific to training. So I'm hoping I'm probably speaking a little bit to the converted here. So you can see a small number of people are in programs where you provide training for mentors only. An equal number, just a small proportion, the 6%, provide it for mentorees only. 50%, I'm happy to say, provide training, some sort of training for mentors and mentorees. So I'm guessing that today is going to be a bit of benchmarking for you, getting new ideas, and perhaps looking at additional strategies you can use to educate, train, and develop your mentors and mentorees. Just a few, 11%, but that's a good number. Provide training for managers as well. And this is important, as you'll see as we go through. 28%. So do you know what? That's still nearly a third, but hopefully that's because you're here to find out how to do it. Just going to, let me put that poll away. And okay, going back to my slides now, just going to read a comment here. Okay, so Nalini says, mentorees get in-person training, mentors get written information only. This is not unusual. So thanks for letting me know that. And so what I'm hoping is more people will share what you're doing and how that works out for you as we go through. So let's continue on here now. And if you've got the handout, you won't need to take this down because I've written it in there for you. But preparing people for mentoring, I believe, is a three-part process of education, training, and development. And in this context, I define education as what mentoring is, why it's important, and how your program will operate. So it's background education that is necessary for lots of people beyond just your participants. Training is more specific, what to do. This is for your participants, what to do and how to do it. And it might be for managers as well, as you get them on board and let them know how they need to support their participants in this program. And then development is the specific skills of mentoring and the tools and techniques that they need to use. So that's kind of acquiring those skills. And before your mentoring program even begins, you need to start your education of potential participants as well as those indirectly involved. Start before the start because you want to generate attention and interest. You want to gain support and you want to attract your participants and indeed advocates or champions that will support your program. Now, if you've got the handout, I've actually put a little table in there with the who, why, and how of this education that needs to happen before the launch of your program. And I'll give you the ideas, the notes that you want to fill in that table as a good takeaway for yourself as we go along. So here we go. The decision makers. You want to educate them so that they'll support and fund the program. So this is under the why heading in that table if you've got it. You want to educate managers at all levels because, believe me, they can derail mentoring if they don't support it. And I've seen this happen so many times. I've also seen many and talked to many participants who really struggle with working for managers who either don't know about, don't understand, don't support, or actively discourage participation in a mentoring program. And of course, you want to educate potential mentors and mentorees so they'll want to be involved and they know what to expect. I have a fundamental belief in making informed decisions. So if people know what to expect or what the program's about, how it's going to work, before they sign up, then you're going to get a better quality of participants, and by inferred from that, implicit in that really, is that the outcomes will be better as well. And you also want to educate everyone you can because that's the way you're going to find advocates who will champion the cause for you, who'll take it up at senior management levels, who'll be your champion and blow the trumpet and help you in promoting your mentoring program. So the what of this or the how of this is you want to emphasize the why of mentoring. Why is it necessary? You talk about its purpose. What problems will it fix? What are the benefits and the advantages of mentoring? Now, in an organisation, you'll be making the business case for mentoring, talking strategic outcomes. And you may have been on previous webinars of mine where I've talked specifically about developing a business case and also developing the strategy and the design of mentoring programs, where I expand on those ideas. At a personal level, you need to focus more on individual motivation, so how this actually benefits people individually. Education is the key to the communication strategy that promotes your mentoring program. You want to inform and inspire people. So you're going to need to go out and collect facts and data. So on a webinar like this, I'm kind of preaching to the converted. Almost everyone on the line here today will be convinced of the benefits and the value of mentoring. But that's not the case when you're going out into your organisation or out into the broader world. Mentoring is just one of many activities, strategies, ideas that you want to implement that is competing with other budgets and other attention-getting ideas. So you really need to have your data and do your research and your homework so that you can speak authoritatively about the strategic value and the personal benefits of mentoring in ways that are relevant to your audience. You need to create meaningful messages and deliver them via multiple media. And I'll talk about those different media in just a moment. So this means doing your research, picking out information relevant to your organisation and your people, then crafting the most important messages you want to communicate about mentoring into those various delivery modes. And there they are. The written mode, the spoken mode, visual, getting them across live, and in recorded messages of various ways. I'm going to share a list of some of the ways I've done this, and as you get the message out into your world. So here's a list of some of the things you can do before your mentoring program is actually launched to promote the needs and benefits. So the strategic advantages, the organisational needs, the individual needs, and the benefits of mentoring. I'm going to pause for a moment. You can type in the number. So rather than run through all of those, I'll respond to the ones that are of most interest to you. So type in a number now. That is something that you are most interested in me speaking about. I'm going to pause and soothe my throat with a sip of tea. Okay. Okay, so I see the numbers coming in, and Cedric was first off the mark with number 7. So Cedric, I'm actually doing quite a lot of videos now, and I love doing them. Now, I'm not in front of the camera. I'm not so keen on that like most people, but my videos are made using my slides and then a recorded audio narration. And then the two are synchronized together and turned into an MP4. Now, I use videos at all stages, before, during, and before and during a mentoring program. In the before stage, I find they're particularly useful, and a couple of clients have asked me to do this, to put together a really short, now video needs to be short. You'll find most YouTube videos are less than 5 minutes, and there's a reason for that. People have a short attention span these days, and you can cram a lot of information into a quite short video. So the videos I make for use before a mentoring program are really selling, if you like, promoting, marketing, the benefits of mentoring generally, but also the advantages of the specific mentoring program that we are trying to attract people to be involved in. So I'll produce a bunch of slides and record the audio narration, put those together, and then that can be made available on the client's intranet site or on their website, and then they can send out promotional material that invites people to go view that video. Usually we make those with little reference to dates, things that will date it, so that they've got an ongoing resource that they can use again and again. My friend Gihan, thanks for joining us today. So Gihan's interested in number 5, staff information sessions. Now, I love to do staff information sessions. These are usually quite short sessions, but I do make them two-way. In fact, I use these as part of my needs analysis before a mentoring program's actually designed. So with clients who want to introduce a mentoring program, I'll usually go out to several of their locations and work with small groups of their target mentors and mentorees to talk generally about what mentoring is and how it might work for them. Then I get them. I do lots of group work. This can be done with larger groups, but generally it's smaller groups. So it's almost like a focus group. I ask them, having introduced the mentoring concept, and a couple of models, I then ask them what they think the benefits would be to them as mentors, to them as mentorees, and to their organisation. And that gives us some material that then can be fed into our evaluation later on, and it also feeds into the design of the program. It also warms people up to the idea of mentoring. I find that we get a better response rate when we open up nominations for the program, and we've already broken the ice. People know me, although I might be an outsider to their organisation. They usually have built some rapport, so feel more comfortable, and it's a way of sharing information face to face, which is really ideal. So thanks for that question. Okay, Rochelle is asking about number 1, personal communication. So Rochelle, let's imagine for a moment, I don't know what your situation is, but imagine you are in an organisation and you are a coordinator, director, manager, whatever your title is, of a mentoring program or a forthcoming mentoring program, or you're in a planning team. So personal communication is where you go out one-on-one, talking to managers at all levels, talking to people in the corridors, talking to people in the tea room, being invited to staff meetings to talk about mentoring. Or it could be, and these can be combined together, obviously, written information that you send out and email out. So it's you speaking in your own voice about mentoring. Okay, Hanneke is talking about management briefings. Management briefings are, again, live, or they could be done by webinar. I'd much rather get face-to-face with managers, though, if possible, because they're a bit like the staff information sessions, same concept. You go to them, present some information. When you're presenting to managers, you're going to take a much more strategic approach to mentoring. So you're going to be talking about the business case as much or perhaps more than individual benefits. It depends who the managers are, but you want to, it's like any audience, you must speak the language of your audience. So managers are usually interested in bottom line results. And again, this is where you need your facts and your data, your statistics, and to have done your homework so that you can present results in meaningful terms to those managers. You could I'm calling this education. It is also communication. You could call it that if you want. Nalini's asking for number 6, information kits, print or web-based. So again, I like to have these ready before a program actually starts and make part of that available to anyone who asks for it. So again, this is part of the informed decision making. So you can produce, your guidelines, your policy, some of the how-tos, certainly a description of how the program is going to work, what's expected of mentors, what's expected of mentorees, what their roles and responsibilities are. You can also have, for example, a code of ethics or a code of conduct, things like that, all available. Now, most organisations these days want it available to be printed, but they'll have it in a web-based format. So I might prepare that, or you might prepare that in a PDF, but you'll upload it to a web page on your intranet site or a dedicated website, whatever is appropriate for you, so that you can direct inquiries to that spot where they can download all the information that they need prior to joining the program, and therefore make informed decisions about joining it. Okay, Gihan is asking about 2. I've covered number 2, management briefings. Kathy wanted number 1. I've talked about that. Christina's after number 10, targeted emails. So by targeted emails, this is an extension of your personal communication, but it's written communication. You're going to send emails to various targeted groups. So you might have one kind of, and I'll show you an example of a communication plan a little bit later on in the webinar that shows how we targeted different groups. So you might have one particular style of email that's going to managers. One for senior managers, again, emphasizing the strategic value of mentoring, and another that goes to the managers of your likely participants, emphasizing that this is valuable to the organization. This isn't just something that's nice for people to be involved in. Then you want to target emails going to potential mentors. Again, this is marketing. This is selling, if you like. This is promoting mentoring generally and your specific program. How is this of value, and why should they want to join and contribute? So the message to mentors is going to be targeted differently to the one to mentorees. Hope that's making sense for you. Maria's after 1, which we've covered. Diane's after 5, which we've covered. Nola wanted 6. We've covered that. Okay, Pam wanted 4, 6. We've talked about 12. 12 is ongoing updates. So they say with television advertising that by the time your staff are sick of seeing their organisation's ad on TV, it's just cutting through with its targeted audience. And I kind of apply that principle in communicating about mentoring. It's not a one-off thing. It's something you've got to keep up throughout the program, but especially at the beginning when you're wanting to keep people up to date. Also, if you say you've launched your program and you've opened up expressions of interest or inquiries, or you're taking on board applications to join, you want to keep those people updated as to where you're actually at. So I'd have a system where once someone expresses an expression of interest or applies to join, you immediately, and perhaps have an automated response that tells them, yes, we've received your application, applications close on such and such a date, we'll be back to you by such and such a date, and the program's starting at such and such a date. And then on those dates, you communicate again. Likewise with your managers and so on. Okay, running out of time. I think we've covered most of them. Okay, a comment from Gihan. Staff info sessions. Yeah, I was interested in who runs these sessions. Is it something managers and leaders do, or only you as an external consultant? Good question, Gihan. I sometimes do it as an external consultant, but very happy for managers and leaders to do it. And if I'm doing it, I love to have managers and leaders there to introduce and kind of put their stamp of approval on it. The more visible managers and leaders are in your mentoring program, the more people get the message that they're really behind it. We need support from the top. That's the catch cry, but we need more than lip service. We actually need visible support. Okay, so let me continue. So I just wanted to show you, now this is going to be too small for you to see as it comes up on your screen. Don't worry about that. The point is, what you're seeing is a photograph of a spreadsheet that I set up. And I just want to make the point that a communication strategy, which is really education of numbers of different groups of people needs to take place across the life of your program. And if you can see this, this spreadsheet went over, I think, a 2-year period, 2011 to 2013, and it specified, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different groups of staff. And the colour coding is the reason I've put it up here rather than the detail. Don't try and get this detail. But the colour coding shows you the pink was for face-to-face. So we actually got in front of people and had two-way communication at meetings or workshops. The blue was written communication. The green, also written, but actually emailed out to people. We also had a newsletter, and then we had online resources that were available or going out to people. So this is pretty comprehensive, and I reckon this level is kind of going to make a difference to your mentoring program. That's why I quickly show it to you now. So I want to get on to, I will pause again for comments and questions or observations in just a moment. You can type those in as we're going, but I'll keep going and pause shortly to look at those and respond to those. But I do want to get on to the main meat of our topic today and talk about why do we need to train our participants now. Even experienced mentors need an orientation to the objectives of a particular program. What is the purpose? What are they meant to do, and how should they do it? It's also useful for them to become part of a network of mentors and mentorees. Sometimes the network is as important as the mentoring, I find. They need an opportunity to raise their issues and concerns and have their questions answered. It's particularly important for mentors to understand the strategic value of the program and that their contribution benefits the individual but is also building the capability of the organisation. Now, my preferred model of training where I can get face-to-face, and I'll talk about the other methods shortly, but my preferred model, if I can do workshops, is to have 3 half days. We do one for mentors by themselves, and you might call this a mentor briefing because more senior people, some of them don't like to be trained in inverted commas there. So if you call it a mentor briefing, they're more comfortable with that. In fact, it is a workshop and it's just a rose by a different name. I like to do 1 half day with mentorees separately, and they need to be primed to get the most from their mentoring relationship. And it's helpful for them to clarify their goals and understand their responsibilities and discuss their expectations before they meet their mentor. Depending on the purpose of the mentoring, they may need some preparation with career development activities, communication skills, or self-awareness instruments. I use the Myers-Briggs type indicator and also the Strengths Finder, and that can be really useful as well. Of course, you could do that with mentors and mentorees together as well. I often do that. If you can bring mentors and mentorees together, you can make sure they're on the same page in terms of expectations. And you can even facilitate their first meeting in an environment that ensures the best chance of them getting off to a good start and a productive relationship. You can also develop strategies for dealing with problems and provide guidelines excuse me, for maintaining the relationship. The bottom line is, if you are investing in a mentoring program, you can't afford not to prepare participants to get the most out of it. Now, I will pause and check for any questions or comments that are coming in. So I'll pause for a moment and see what's there. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions or comments at the moment. Okay, so I've talked in general terms about education. I've talked about why it's necessary to train your participants. I'm going to now go into what they need to know and then finish up with how the various delivery modes. I've focused a little bit on workshops and I want to expand on the other methodologies before we finish up. So, in my question just coming in. Okay. Okay, so Haniki is asking, how would you see this model working with very large cohorts of participants? What I've done with very large cohorts is, because I'm an external consultant, I have gone in and actually trained trainers. Now, they need to be experienced trainers with an interest in mentoring, but I've actually designed workshops specifically for their situation, and then run the workshop that I've designed with the trainers, and then run a follow-up workshop looking at the training methodologies and having them practice the processes. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to have the online webinars or videos and other resources available as well. So obviously with very large cohorts, it is more difficult. But you can do decentralized live workshops. You're limited really by your budget and your resources. That's the bottom line. Thanks for the question, Hanneke. So, in my workshops, I'm talking about what they need to know. So, when you train people for their role, you increase the likelihood of success in mentoring. Those that have a framework for the mentoring process and strategies for facilitating a mentoring conversation are more likely to be effective and enjoy their role. So, in my workshops, I talk about this framework. In terms of models that give them sound, solid foundations and support to build on, yet still give flexibility, because no two mentoring relationships are ever the same. After we discuss what mentoring is and what it isn't, and the different kinds of mentoring, these are the key models that I share. Now, this slide is actually in the handout if you've got it. If you haven't got it, I'm also going to send it out to you afterwards. So I just want to overview these models. I've talked about them in more depth in previous webinars, and all of the details of them are, of course, in my book. So I'll just really quickly overview them now. So the first model that I share is the mentoring dynamic. This talks about how mentoring is not a static thing. It's a relationship. It moves, it grows, it changes. I talk about how the traditional view of mentoring, if you look at the 6 o'clock position on this particular diagram, where it's labelled impart. This is the traditional view of mentoring, where the mentor shares their knowledge and experience. And what I like to contrast that with is a more contemporary view of mentoring, which is far more about asking questions and listening. But the two play a part. That's the dynamic. It's not an either or. It's not a right or wrong. A good mentoring relationship will oscillate between the two, with the mentor asking questions and listening before they start to share their knowledge and experience. But also, likewise, the mentoree is going to ask questions and listen so that the mentor can share their knowledge and experience. So it's kind of a flowing dynamic there. On the right-hand side of that diagram, our view of a mentor is usually someone who supports, encourages, and validates the individual. But on the other side, you can see you also want someone who will challenge, provide a different perspective, maybe another point of view, a different opinion. So again, it's not an either or, good or bad, but mentoring conversations and relationships move around in each of these areas. I then build on this to talk about various mentoring roles: the confidant, the catalyst, the sounding board, the link, the role model, the coach, the advisor, and the guide. And finally, we move on in a workshop, or indeed in online materials, to the mentoring conversation. And this is the key tool for mentors to lead a conversation with their mentoree. The 4 questions: where are you now, where do you want to be, how might you get there, and how you're doing, are not the questions they're going to actually come out of their mouth, but they are the questions that a mentor can hold in their mind to actually frame up the questions that they will ask, to elicit and draw out what that person has to say. This is also useful for mentorees to know, so they know what to expect in the conversation. They know that they're not just going to get straight out advice. You don't want to build a dependent kind of relationship. But these questions for a mentoree actually allow them to go and get their thoughts together before they actually have those conversations with their mentor. Now, I think I am going to pause for questions in just a moment, so typing fingers, working away there. I've focused on workshops, and I know very well the difficulties of getting people together face to face. So I'll talk about some other methods shortly. But I guess I guess you can see that these skills are really ones that need to be developed. So actually, I'm wondering if you want to type in, what do you think, now that you've seen these models and some of you are quite familiar with them, I'm looking for your input here. What do you think are the key skills that mentors and mentorees are going to need? So it might be, what are you training people in, or what do you think they would need to develop? So just looking for your responses there, as well as any questions coming in. Okay. Okay, Kathy's asking, how often would you evaluate your progress on mentoring, like a survey? I like to have evaluation going on periodically throughout the mentoring program. I suggest coordinators actually check in with participants 4 to 6 weeks after they've been introduced to one another to make sure they've actually had a meeting. I often have a midpoint review, a workshop face to face if I can get that, or some other sort of feedback mechanism halfway through a program as well as at the end. Thanks, Kathy. Okay. Okay, so questions coming in. Okay, listening skills, says Pam, active listening, effective questioning, reflection, empathy. Cedric says, depends on the personality of the mentor, but how to ask good questions is always a challenge. Yes, thanks. Ray is saying mentors, what their role is, what mentoring is and what it is not. Mentees, what not to do in a mentee session, grovel for a job in brackets. Okay. Noel is asking, do you use role play in face-to-face workshops as a training strategy? Noel, I'm not fond of role plays, but what I do, and one of the reasons I love to get mentors in a workshop by themselves, is a skills rehearsal. This is extremely powerful. So having introduced those models that I showed before, and I just mentioned the slide that's up there is of my book, because of course all the models are explained in detail along with activities and worksheets within that book. But Nola, in terms of the skills rehearsal, I introduce these models. We talk about them, we do various activities, but the best activity of all is learning by doing. So I ask mentors to come up with, and they're pre-warned before they come to the workshop and at the beginning and during the workshop, I'll ask them to share a decision, a goal, or an issue with another person. So they partner up and they use the techniques that we have been talking about in the workshop to mentor one another. So it's not a role play, you might call it a real play, but it is a practice session. I find more learning comes out of that than anything, because the big insight that they get is how difficult it is to stop themselves jumping in with premature advice and telling people what to do. Now, and that's the essence, that's the real difference between mentoring today and old-fashioned mentoring, where mentors really kind of tell people what to do, and it's more of an instructive role. So today we certainly give advice and we can certainly give opinions and so forth, but the essence is not to jump in too quickly with solutions, answers, or advice. And the best way, the way they really get that, is by practicing in a real to life situation. And sometimes they're quite amazed at the outcomes of that experience. Okay. Diane's saying the mentors need to have a good idea of time commitment to the program, time management. How many mentorees can one mentor take on at a time? My recommendation is to stick with one if you possibly can. It is possible that mentors can have more than one mentor, of course, but it is a significant demand on their time. Most mentors are in management roles or roles where there are strong demands on their time. So it might be a bit of a big ask for more than one. So thanks for those questions. Okay, another poll for you here. Let's get some input. So let's see what you're doing now. So coming up on your screen, do you provide face-to-face workshops, books or workbooks, webinars or teleconferences, e-courses or online learning, other forms of learning? So once you've, and you can choose more than one here, so choose as many as is applicable to you. You can also expand on your selection by typing in the questions box. You can keep typing other questions and comments once you have voted. Okay, we've got about 50% of the vote now. Just give that a few more seconds. You can choose more than one here, and I see lots coming in here. So if you choose the last one, please do type in. So if you're saying other forms of learning, please type that in so we can share what other forms. Okay, we may be there because I know 28% of you actually don't offer training at all. So I'm going to now close that poll and share the results with you. Okay, so there you can see. Okay, 73% face-to-face workshops, so that's nearly 3/4. 40% perhaps also, or maybe instead of, and I know I've got a couple of clients who only provide my books to their participants. That's all the people get, and they seem to be happy with that. 20% webinars or teleconferences, and I'd be interested to know which. I prefer not to do teleconferences. Now, since webinars technology came to me, I just love it so much, as you can probably tell. I'd much prefer to do that. So we've got about a third doing e-courses or online learning and 27% doing other forms. So I'm going to put that away now and just read some of the comments. Okay, Kathy is saying networking groups. That is very powerful if you can get your people back together for networking. I know a lot of the universities that I work with have ongoing networking groups for their participants, and where that's students, they provide food. There's nothing like pizza for getting students to come to something. Okay, Ray is saying other. A workshop debriefing where mentors share what they have found useful and share with others. Yeah, I think that's really important because mentors need some support, and having a cohort there to feed back to and from is really useful. Okay, I'll read any more that come in, but I'm going to kind of move on. Okay, so I just wanted to fill out that model for you. I should have completed. There were lots of suggestions, and they were completely in line with the key elements that I include in my workshops: listening, active listening, various forms of listening, communication styles. I usually talk about the authoritative style and the facilitative style, and the need for both of those styles to make mentoring work, and asking good questions. And this is what Cedric said, and Cedric's here again, Cedric says small groups talking with themselves and discussing challenges. Yes, excellent suggestions there. I hope you're getting some notes from what other people are saying. This model, I showed you the first column earlier on, and we talked about that. Once again, mentioning that your education as well as training and development occurs before, during, and even at the end of your program. So we've talked now about preparing participants with workshops, maybe with online training, books and resources. I love it when you can facilitate that first contact because you know that they've met face-to-face or online, with some of the video technology now. there are lots of activities that can be done during the program to keep people engaged, to top up their learning, to give them additional resources or content to actually work on. So there's some of the ones that I've seen or used there. And again, if you want to know more about these, just type in what it is you'd like to know more about if any of these are not familiar to you. And feel free to type in as well if you've got additional ideas here. The idea of personal individual follow-up is really important. That can be kind of coaching or mentoring the mentors, or mentoring or coaching the mentorees by the actual program coordinator, manager, director. There's a lot you can do now with automated follow-up. And I'm doing a lot of this. E-courses, and what I mean by that, learned from my friend and my own mentor, Gihan, who's on the line with us today, is running e-courses where you actually send short, regular emails with little tidbits of information, prompting them to actions, maybe directing them to a piece in your book or some online resources, just short and sweet, that just keep them engaged and give them a little bit of a prompt to do something. Mentoring tips, where again it's a little bit more information. You might have a participant newsletter sharing information or ideas. Where you've got a large cohort, they can actually do this themselves. I know in some organisations they'll have a young professionals group, and so you'll have a couple of coordinators of that group who might be champions of your mentoring program, and they put together a newsletter for young professionals, and they might put a regular column in on the mentoring program, or publish something in that. Your online resource centre, where it can be kind of a one-stop shop, where everything, there might be videos, there might be articles, there might be mentoring tips, there might be other tools that they can actually use. You can even have an online community where the participants, there might be a closed community available only to participants in your program. You might have it for mentors and mentorees separately, or all in there together, and they can talk to each other as well as perhaps to the coordinators of the program. You can have a Q&A forum, and I know one of my clients actually had Yammer set up internally, and they set up a Yammer spot for their mentors and mentorees so that they could post problems, questions, and so forth, and it answers, obviously. And I provided some, we collected some questions, and I provided some answers that they could post on that. You'd have blogs, webinars, videos, etc. So just seeing if there are any questions coming in. Okay, so I also believe that you want to have some process for closure at the end of a program. I love to run a final event to give people closure and to actually gather feedback and evaluation, and also the opportunity to network. And you can, a lot of programs actually continue the networking either online or informally. The previous programs participants might be in the network, and so as each program ends, you get a new batch of participants in the network. Okay, pausing to read some comments or questions here. Cedric is saying, we sometimes find mentors run out of puff after a while. Has anyone got any suggestions to give them a boost? Okay, that's a call out to all of you. So what's your experience of this? Cedric's saying sometimes they run out of puff, and I find this too. I have mentors that come back for 2 and 3 programs in a row, but I think they do need a break from time to time. And maybe that's it. Maybe you give them a break, but then follow them up next time round and see if they're ready to come back. I think one of the most important things to maintain your mentors is to continually be giving them positive feedback, and it needs to come from more than just you. So uh, getting your mentorees to give feedback to their mentors is really important. Sometimes I facilitate that. Sometimes I take along blank greeting cards and encourage mentorees to write a card, or postcards, write a card to their mentor to give them some positive feedback. I also love it when you can get the senior manager, your champions, your advocates, your CEOs, to actually write to mentors and tell them how valued their contribution is. When you get the CEO or someone else standing up in public and talking about the valuable contribution of their mentors, that always helps as well. So any other suggestions, I'll read those out. Okay, Nalini's saying Maria's saying, what is a resource centre? So a resource centre is kind of like an online library. So it might be a web page, or it might be a dedicated website where you can place all of the resources for your program. So your guidelines, your procedures, your policies, your workbook, written resources, tips, your videos, online tutorials, all of those sorts of things in one place that they can access 24/7 whenever they want, however they want. And I usually complement a resource centre with an e-course, so a series of emails that are automated to go out to participants to prompt them to use something in the resource centre as they go through. Nalini's saying, thank them for their help. So this is a suggestion to give the mentors a boost. Thank them for their help and ask them to refer someone else to participate in their place. What a good idea. Thanks for that, Nalini. Okay, where am I up to? So I think what I want to show you next, just mentioning some of the resources there that are often provided to participants in my courses, and of course the webinars. And I'm going to talk a bit more about webinars in a moment. But I wanted to share with you, this is a sample of a program I'm running right now. And this is an award-winning program that I've been running for the past 3 years for a client. So it's been finely honed over those 3 years, but it hasn't changed dramatically. But what you see here, now I did mention that my preferred model is 3 half days, but of course there's many ways to do workshops. This particular client goes for a 2-day residential. So we bring participants in from around New South Wales. We put them up in a hotel and we work with them for 2 days. And they really do a lot of getting to know each other and forming a really good network cohort over that period of time. Of course, it is a significant investment, but this particular organisation is happy to make that investment and is recouping the benefits of that. We then run a workshop on career development. Now, these workshops go from, 9:30 till 3, but it's stress to participants that their day doesn't end at 3 o'clock. They are expected to meet. We end with afternoon tea for them, and they're expected to meet with their mentoring partner after that. So it's a normal working day. Now they can meet, their meeting might be in the back of the cab on the way back to the airport, or indeed at the bar at the airport. I don't care, but they are required to have that one-on-one meeting. We did this specifically in our design because these people are from around the state. They find it difficult to get together face to face. We wanted to give them workshops anyway, so by this design gives them no excuse not to get together. The next workshop, we go into personality and strengths, again using the MBTI and the Strengths Finder. And this gives them tons of meat to really work on, and both mentors and mentorees do these instruments if they've not already done them, so that they can get real value out of this. There's also an e-course that goes with that to help build on what they learn in the workshop. And then we have our midpoint review. So this is checking on progress. I like to do this because if things have got a bit off track, halfway through the program, it's not too late to get them back on track. And hearing about other people's challenges and how they've overcome them, and other people's successes really re-energizes the entire group. I also do a session on goal achievement at that time. So it's part review and part workshop, and again, the pairs meetings. Following that is a period where we don't have any workshops, but we do have individual follow-up by the program coordinator. We also have the e-course, so the email prompts. We have the online resources and mentoring tips, and the pairs are expected to meet or at least have contact by phone, email, video conferencing, whatever their preferred modality is. And then we bring them back for a final event. And in this case, we actually do an art show, and this is just tremendous. I can't tell you how wonderful this event is. People can be a little bit intimidated at first, but they get into it and they love it. The idea is that they create a piece of art that represents their experience. And I tell them, interpret art very broadly. It can be a painting or a drawing if you like. It could be a collage, a poster, a book. It can be spoken. It could be a dance. It could be a song. Whatever you want to do is fine. It's just a representation of your experience. There's then a graduation ceremony where the CEO comes in and presents certificates to all. We do evaluation and then have a lovely lunch. Okay, just reading some comments here. Cedric's saying great suggestions. So many of you came out back with suggestions. Kathy's saying thank you. Okay, so Kathy needs to go. That's okay. We are going just a trifle over time. I will hang around for questions at the end as long as you need. Nalini is saying many of our mentors are not supported by their workplaces and volunteer. It's difficult to get them to invest lots of time in the process. Is there a great way to train mentors that's not face-to-face or time intensive? We have around 100 to 150 mentors participating at a time. I suspect, with all the technology, and this is going to sound self-serving, and I hope you won't see it as just that, but sometimes putting a book in their hands or written information, you can write your own stuff and put written information in their hands is probably one of the best ways. So the technology that I've talked about so far, the webinars, again, that's an investment of time. The short videos that are only 5 minutes, perhaps with a worksheet as an online learning tutorial is another good way. Julie's saying, how would this fit in with an ongoing mentoring program? Yeah, I mean, you can introduce some of these things at any time. Better late than never. You can make online resources available to people at any time. The mentoring tips, you could get a newsletter going with articles at any time. So it's time I wrapped up now. So I'm going to stick around for any more questions or comments. So I'll come back to those in a while. And what we've covered in this webinar is why train mentoring participants, what do they need to know, and how to deliver education, training, and development throughout the program. It's not just a one-off, and it's not just workshops. There's technology out there. So if you'll indulge me, I do just want to share with you some exciting news about the customised webinars that I'm offering now. And you've joined me on this webinar, and you know that webinars are especially suitable when you want to provide personalised mentoring training for your participants. If you're keen on live interactive sessions but you can't get people together for face-to-face training, I can now offer you webinars on your mentoring topics delivered at times that suit you, and recording them and making them available 24/7. A very cost-effective way to deliver what they need to know. And now I've got a series of 4 webinars. Here they are. The first one, how mentoring works. So that goes into the framework that I showed you before, where to start, more specifically, how to get started with mentoring, how to maintain that mentoring relationship, the essential skills, so talking about the listening skills and the questioning skills, and then the last one is the art of feedback. So it's mentoring, I believe, is built on the ability to give and receive feedback. I've run webinars for clients in Australia, Canada, China, and the US. And I have a very good deal on this package of 4 webinars tailored to suit your particular audience. So please call or email if you think this could be for you. So before we finish up, I'm very interested in your key takeaways and the actions as a result of that. They say information is power, but I think it's what you do with information that's really powerful. So I'd love you to type in what are your key takeaways from this sessions and what actions are you going to take? And I'll read those out as they come in. And I realise we've gone 5 minutes over time here, but I'm going to stick around for another, for another little while and answer any more questions that come in. So please typing in your takeaways, your actions, and your questions. So Julie's saying, important to keep mentors engaged. Run, and the action is run network meetings. Good, good. Nalini's saying, develop a more thorough annual education training calendar. Excellent. That big spreadsheet, it was kind of a task in itself, but so worthwhile. Something similar from Cedric, do a timeline calendar. Ray's saying takeaways, preparing mentors and getting feedback from them is critical, and actions is to initiate that. Nola's saying, thank you for a very informative session. You have reminded me just how important training is, but also the really important part that the mentor manager has in terms of keeping in touch with mentors and giving them some tips and encouragement along the way. Great, Nola. You're welcome, Nola. Diane's saying, takeaway, I also like the networking idea and the idea of creating a resource centre for participants. Julie's saying, develop evaluation strategy and do it. Yeah. Jennifer's saying, sorry I came in late today, so I only caught the final 15 minutes. Oh, looking forward to the face-to-face sessions at UNE. Yes, I'll see you there soon, Jennifer. Cedric is saying, great webinar, best one yet. Thanks very much. Oh, Cedric, thank you. You're so kind. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I will stick around if you do have further questions. I'll stick around for a few more minutes. I do have an appointment to go to, and I'll have to leave probably in about 15 or 20 minutes, but I can stick around for a little while now. If you have any questions, I'm going to stop the recording at this point, so thank you very much if you're watching the recording. If you want to send me email questions, I will respond.